All right, I think we're live, right? Hey everybody, how are you? It's Mohammed Abdul Kader. I'm the executive director of the Stevens Initiative here at the Aspen Institute in beautiful and sunny Washington, D.C. I want to thank everybody for joining today. We've got a great webinar on how to internationalize your campus experience through virtual exchange. It's a really important topic. We've seen some really cool and interesting models and projects across the country and across the world, and we wanted to highlight some of that today and really dig in a little bit deeper on the issue. This has been a topic that has continued to come up at conferences, sort of on the international education circuit, and we really just wanted to expand it using the power of technology and bring it out to more folks. As you guys know, the Stevens Initiative is a public-private partnership. It is supported by the U.S. Department of State with additional support and very generous support by the Bezos Family Foundation, the Kingdom of Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, and it's managed here at the Aspen Institute in Washington, D.C. Excuse me. I would encourage you all to check out our website. It's www.stevensinitiative.org, and our Twitter account is @StevensINIT. We've got a really cool digital campaign that's going on right now that will highlight a lot of virtual exchange stories, so I would encourage you guys to check it out. Cool. Let's go ahead and get started. We've got three great panelists with us here today from different institutions who are going to share their perspectives. First of all, we have Stephanie Doscher, who is with Florida International University. We have Jean-Mario Bissana, who is the Associate Provost for Global Engagement at DePaul University. And we've got Dawn Wood at Kirkwood Community College. Dawn is the Dean of International Programs. I didn't mention that Stephanie is the Director of Global Learning Initiatives at FIU. Thank you all for being with us here today. Happy Thursday. I want us just to start off, why don't you guys tell us, just give us a brief snapshot of your virtual exchange projects. We wanted this format to be a little bit different. We're not using PowerPoint. We want to just have it as a discussion. So Stephanie, why don't you kick us off? Tell us briefly about your program.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for inviting all of us today, Mohammed. This is great. At FIU, we have a university-wide global learning initiative that reaches all of our undergraduate students. We have a two-course global learning requirement for graduation, and that also involves co-curricular activities. And we define global learning in a specific way. We describe it as the process of diverse people collaboratively analyzing and addressing complex problems that transcend borders. So just from that description of how we think about global learning, you can probably already surmise why we thought virtual exchange, or we refer to it here at FIU as collaborative online international learning, or COIL, why this pedagogy was such a great match for us. And it's only been about 1.5 years since we really formally launched our effort, and we have 15 faculty that are currently coiling on a sustained basis, and they're coiling in marine biology, journalism, hospitality, English, Italian, and they're working with faculty from China, Brazil, Mexico, Italy, France, and Japan. So we're very excited about it, so much so that we have an institute coming up on leadership, how to lead university-wide or college-wide an initiative like this.
That's great. Dawn, let's jump into you. You're at a community college. Would love to hear a little bit about the program that you've been engaged in. It's a really cool one. Tell us about it. I think you're on mute, Dawn. There you go.
Thanks a lot, Mohammed. Here at Kirkwood Community College, we have a vision that every Kirkwood faculty, staff, and student engage in intercultural experiences as part of their Kirkwood experience. So that should just be a natural part of their education. So my department is responsible for facilitating that, supporting that, and building champions around campus to be part of that. So we've been involved with the Aspen Institute Stevens Initiative Global Sustainability Challenge, which is a very structured virtual exchange project that we've enjoyed being a part of, as well as several other independent projects around campus with our faculty who have initiated very interesting virtual exchange projects, some in conjunction with an education abroad type of opportunity, some in some of our technical programs like construction or electronics or CAD, where they're meeting with students to do problem-based learning in the classroom. And then we've also been engaged in just things that grow. So at Kirkwood, we have a very kind of grassroots type of enthusiasm about global learning that's really fun to be a part of. And the virtual exchange is something that people see as a fun part of their teaching and learning opportunities.
Always happy to hear that. John Mario, let's jump to you. What do you, Paul?
So at DePaul, we started a university-wide virtual exchange initiative in 2013. So we've been at it for about 6 years. We branded it internally as Global Learning Experience, or GLE for short. We've done to date about 70 courses. We have another 9 courses going on this term and another 15 coming up in spring term. We operate on quarters, so we have 3 terms a year. We have touched about 1,200 students thus far on disciplines that are practically span the entire gamut of what we offer. As Stephanie was mentioning, hospitality, check, we've done that. Italian, check, we've done that. We've done chemistry, so from the hard sciences to the social sciences, to the humanities, to nursing. And we've worked with about 23, 24 different countries thus far. It has been very exciting to see the growth of the project and how faculty are getting excited about this modality, which is the same as Don and Stephanie mentioned, even at DePaul. This is one of the way in which we try to infuse global learning in the experience of our students, but it's one way that is becoming increasingly important for us. And I'll be happy to give more details as we continue the conversation.
I appreciate that. We can definitely dig in and elaborate in a few minutes. But I want to sort of hear from you all. Most of your campuses will have traditional study abroad experiences. What were some of the main drivers behind starting a virtual exchange program? Let's start with Stephanie.
Sure. Well, I first became intrigued by virtual exchange, or COIL, about 6 years ago, just because it aligned so well with how we define global learning. And we just knew that we would have faculty who already have research partnerships that are international, or just personal friendships with faculty abroad who would be interested in doing something like this. But to be honest, about 3 years ago, my institution adopted a goal that by 2020, around half of our courses would be taught in hybrid or fully online modality. And that really put the onus on me as the director of this program to provide professional development for our faculty to engage students in authentic global learning through technology. So that was when we just said, we really need to jump all in here.
Great. I want to come back to the training piece in a minute, Stephanie, but Dawn, I want to go to you and hear kind of about how you guys sort of initially, what the initial driver was for your virtual exchange program.
Yeah, I think if I look back, it's probably about 6 or 7 years ago. The initial driver came from some of our education abroad faculty leaders who wanted to make sure they could spread their global learning opportunity to more people. So they knew what an impact education abroad had on the students, but the fact is that not everybody is able to do that. So they just had this real drive to give access to that type of experience, even if the travel couldn't happen. So it really came from the faculty themselves who were championing the issue. And then we went out looking for various opportunities, such as the one that Aspen Institute and Stevens Initiative provided, and we also work with the French Embassy. We're just always looking for more partners that we can connect with, and also from our existing international partners who are seeking more ways to provide access to their students. So just making those connections and those natural relationships happen.
That's great. And Dawn, just to be clear, you all ended up working with another party, with IREX, and we'll talk a little bit about that, who was able to facilitate this virtual exchange experience. So slightly different model, but also I'm really excited to hear more about that shortly. John Mario, what about you? Tell us a little bit about what initially drove this at DePaul.
Yeah, this works perfectly, because even if we didn't plan to go in this route, the two drivers that Stephanie and Don mentioned were our two drivers in a sense. The first one was an explicit call in our strategic plan, Vision 2018. So this is the strategic plan that ended last year. There was a specific call for a faculty initiative leading to a broader engagement with global learning. And the second one was the realization that roughly only 4% of our students are physically internationally mobile. And so as a matter of equity, we wanted to amplify access to international experiences. So a strategic goal on one end, and then a more practical equity-directed driver for us.
That's important, John Mario. I think we're hearing more and more of that. Institutions who are thinking about how to be more equitable in their international education and really providing more access, or seeing virtual exchange as an important tool in that. So I'm glad to hear that from all three of you. John Mario, I want to kind of drill in on that a little bit, because there are often challenges then around launching a program like this, around starting a virtual exchange program. Can you share a little bit about some of the challenges that you all faced at DePaul?
Sure, and surprisingly, the challenge that I'm going to mention won't probably seem the ones that you expect, because we did not have leadership buy-in challenges, we did not have faculty buy-in challenges, we don't have financial challenges, but two singular challenges. The first one was the lack of our lack of experience and lack of availability of detailed examples that we could offer to faculty members. It was easy to motivate and excite the faculty member with the overall idea of virtual exchange, but then at the very beginning, when the faculty would ask, so what does this really look like? Can you show me an example of some project the students did? Show me some deliverables, something very concrete. At the beginning, this was quite hard. We relied on the SUNY COIL Center at the very beginning, but it was problematic. The first time we ran our professional development workshop for faculty, it was problematic not having detailed examples for them. And the second challenge was, and still is, tech support off hours. Once you start doing virtual exchange, because of time differences, you end up engaging faculty and students at all hour of day and night. And for us, providing the same tech support that we can offer during normal hours has been a little problematic.
Gotcha. Stephanie, what about your thoughts on challenges that you all faced? Anything that was different from what John Mario mentioned?
Yes, a slightly different challenge for us was developing the infrastructure that would hold these collaborations and initiate the collaborations and sustain the collaborations. So we needed to think about, even though we already have a fairly robust professional development framework, we have a very firm grounding in how we think about global learning at FIU. Even though we have really a great partnership with so many units across our campus in terms of internationalizing the curriculum and co-curriculum, we didn't have who's going to be the person who is going to reach out to international partners, who is going to be the person who will guide our faculty and our international partners through this specific kind of professional development, who will be the communicator with other units. So we really needed to think about, what are the resources, human, physical, financial, and technological resources that we have? What are those that we need? And then where are the gaps? And how will we strategically deploy those in equitable ways? And that's, again, why we're holding this Leadership Institute, because we really do feel that having an infrastructure and processes for the collaborations is so important. And I know that John Mario and Don will agree with me on that one.
No, that's really great to hear that, because in some cases, I think there's an estimation that you can just walk into a classroom and virtual exchange can just happen. But what I think you and John Mario have both highlighted is so much institutional work and infrastructure that simply needs to be coordinated so that you can see, what's up on top of the water, to use an iceberg analogy, that so much of the work is really underneath the surface of the water, the preparation, just the coordination and then we can begin to talk about an in-classroom experience for students. Dawn, what about you? I want to drill in on your experience with your virtual exchange experience. Share with us some of the challenges that you encountered.
Yeah, some of the challenges I think are the same as what Jean Mario and Stephanie mentioned. And just getting the word out about what is a virtual exchange. Everyone says, oh, what is that? Or how do you define that? Or where do I get started? And having that type of infrastructure and people who can mentor each other, faculty mentors have been really critical to that. So the faculty can help another faculty set up something and see the examples, like Jean Mario said, because those words like COIL and virtual exchange kind of go whoosh over the head in the first conversation until they see it in action and see this and hear the story. So I think my biggest challenge is always spreading the word to other departments and to other places and to make that happen, build that infrastructure and champions on campus.
Great. So I've got a follow-up for you, Dawn, because as you're talking about getting champions, that's such an important part of really any program being successful, is having not only champions, say, at the faculty level or within sort of the administrative core of the institution, but also from leadership. Tell us a little bit about how you all got buy-in. What were some of the selling points that you put forward on the value of virtual exchange?
Well, I mean, from a community college perspective, we are open door access people. That's kind of in our culture. And also here on our campus, we're very globally minded. So it really was an easy sell, and it's low cost. So, you know, people, I think wasn't difficult for me to get buy-in on this campus, because it really promoting that open access and that equity, like we were talking about, are just words that are being thrown out all the time. And so there's constant buy-in for this type of program. I haven't really experienced any resistance, to be honest, which is interesting.
I'm glad to hear all of your campuses have been very forward thinking in adopting this. So let me ask Stephanie, I want to come back to you then. What guidance would you give to a faculty member or an administrator, say, who was at a campus that may not prioritize international education, virtual exchange may not be on their radar? Stephanie, what guidance would you give to that faculty member or that administrator who wants to get a program like this started on how to get buy-in?
Great question. So the key is not to tell people why COIL or virtual exchange is of value to them, but allow people to make that meaning for themselves. So the way we did it is we had an initial day where we invited someone from the outside to come in and just share the story of what COIL or virtual exchange is, a little bit of what it looks like, a little bit of how it's been done at other institutions. And on that first day-long seminar that we had 3 sessions. So the first session in the morning was for partners across our institution that we thought would be involved in supporting the faculty. So these were mostly mid-level administrators, and they were from our Center for the Advancement of Teaching, from Instructional Technology, they were from Student and Scholar Services, International Student Scholar Services, Study Abroad, and we let them just hear that story. Then we invited faculty who were interested to come. They heard the story, and finally in the afternoon, we told the same story to senior administrators. So this was the directors and the vice provosts, and our provost even popped in. We let that cook and bubble, and then we circled back with folks and asked them, what are your impressions? And how could you see this being of value to you? That was the key for us.
Great to hear that. So I want to drill on, another question for you, Stephanie. You talked a little bit earlier about the importance of training faculty members to facilitate virtual exchange. This may be something new for folks. They may not be comfortable with integrating technology into the classroom, despite it being 2019. Stephanie, tell us a little bit about how you all have trained faculty members to conduct virtual exchange on your campus.
Well, the first time that we were engaged with that, we were brought into a grant that was funded by the State Department in Mexico. So it was a multi-state program to support U.S. institutions collaborating with Mexican institutions that don't have a lot of internationalization going on. And that was one experience. So those 2 faculty came back to FIU and shared what it was like what they thought was necessary in that professional development and what they thought maybe we didn't need so much. And then big shout out to Jean Mario, because we reached out to him to share a little bit of how he and his institution support faculty. And then we came back and made it our own a little bit. So that was how we developed our professional development. Do you want to hear a little bit more about what it looks like?
Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more. How frequently do you conduct trainings on campus? What does that training consist of? Would love to hear a little more about that.
Sure. We start with an introduction to COIL, which is how we refer to it at FIU. It's 90 minutes long. Yeah. And we have a face-to-face version and a webinar version. In the face-to-face, we invite anyone who wants to come. And that includes our J1 and visiting faculty. So we think there's a lot of potential for our international faculty who are on campus to make matches and work with faculty while they're here. Yeah, Fulbrighters, et cetera. And then the webinar, we make that free and open to international partners as well. Then we move from that introduction to kind of a differentiated model where we do have a 6-module self-paced Canvas course that takes faculty through the process of developing a unit for their course, and that is everything from student learning outcomes to the icebreaker, collaboration activity, reflection, and technology. But with some of our partners, we prefer to do that more in a coaching, more of a relational method, and those are the 2 main components.
Great. Jean Mario, what about you? You've obviously instituted. How are you all training your faculty members? What does that look like mechanically?
Yeah, so we have a professional development workshop that is 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks long. We offer it twice a year. It is primarily online. It has 2 synchronous requirement moments. The first one for the DePaul faculty is on ground in a room. The second one is on Zoom for everybody. Contrary to what Stephanie mentioned about her professional development, ours is not self-paced, although it's primarily online. It is facilitated. We partner with our Center for Teaching and Learning, and there's a lead facilitator that leads the cohort of faculty through the 2 weeks. It's 5 modules: technology, pedagogy, linguistics, linguistic aspects. We have a new module on English as lingua franca issues, and obviously the technological aspects of it. We populate the 2 weeks with the presence of faculty members who have done virtual exchange before. So they have this mentoring role. There's one faculty member who facilitates an asynchronous discussion. There are 2 faculty members who come and talk about their projects when we do the synchronous meetings. And this professional development for us is required for the faculty members who want to submit a proposal to get funding from us, because we have a mini grant funding system to support travel of the faculty member, and this is a requirement. Lately, we have very strongly encouraged the faculty members to come to the professional development workshop with their partner. So we have anticipated the formation of the partnership before the professional development workshop. That's not a requirement, but it's a very, very strong recommendation.
Thanks, Jean Mario. Dawn, what about you? How do you all train your faculty?
So in a variety of ways, some of which have already been explained, but 2 of my faculty have led a workshop also teaching other faculty how to start this up and get it going. And then through IREX, like you were talking about, we have this very structured Global Sustainability Challenge project that's funded through IREX and is administered by IREX and supported by Stevens Initiative. And in that one, the faculty actually went to well, they were supposed to go to Jordan to do the training, which they would have really enjoyed, but they actually ended up going to DC and getting a chance to have some of that formalized training, walking them through the curriculum of the exchange and what the best practices are. So really a variety of ways. I don't think we have and also we also have what we call collaborative learning days, which is every year we have several sessions on virtual exchange to show those examples and tell those stories.
Great, great. So just a quick housekeeping note for everybody on the line. We've got, over, I think, 200 people from a number of different places. If you guys have questions, hang on to them, and you can put them in the chat box, and we'll address some of the questions towards the end of the webinar. Dawn, I want to come back to you real quick because you mentioned, we've talked that you all have worked with this group called IREX on this Global Sustainability Solutions Challenge. That was a virtual exchange program focused on the hospitality industry and finding sustainability solutions for challenges in that industry. Dawn, what was it like for you all to work with a third party in facilitating a virtual exchange on your campus? Share with us a little bit about the flavor of that.
Yeah, it's been really an interesting process. It's been wonderful for the fact that we are able to see it's been very structured in terms of the process that IREX follows to engage the multiple teams that are involved in the Global Sustainability Challenge. So our faculty had the opportunity then to be trained to use a specific platform that was different from the platforms that we use here at Kirkwood, and the partners that we were partnering with were new partners. So we were assigned to the partner in Jordan, and the Jordanian faculty then and our faculty got to be very close friends. Having that structured was really advantageous for the two faculty who participated, one who had done virtual exchange before and one who had never done it before and now is a huge passionate virtual exchange person. But having that structure, I think, really allowed people to step in and see it as a bigger item, off campus. They get to go to DC and do the training there. And it's been really, really valuable to have that alternative. I think the more different ways you can engage in it, whether it be grassroots from a faculty having his own connection, or from being assigned a connection and also assign the platform you're using. There's so many different ways you can go about this.
Good. I appreciate you mentioning that, John, because I think, you all have had a really successful, I think, interaction with IREX, and I'll share that there are going to be some opportunities in the next few weeks. As the Stevens Initiative, we're going to be announcing our next cohort of awardees. So there will be opportunities for institutions that may not be ready to start their own virtual exchange programs, but may want to participate in an existing one. I would encourage you to go to our website, obviously subscribe to our email listserv, and perhaps email us at stevensinitiative@aspeninstitute.org, and we can always match you up with another institution or with an existing program. So just a quick plug there. John Mario, I want to come back to you because, I know at DePaul you all ask a lot of questions about impact on students. How have you all looked at, the impact of virtual exchange, both from a quantitative and a qualitative perspective? What's been the impact on your students?
Yeah, so that's of great interest to us right now. We spend so much energy in creating, as Stephanie was saying, the necessary infrastructure and then launching the program and seeing it grow. And now we are very interested in measuring impact on students. We have developed an instrument with 13 questions and an internal part of the infrastructure that disseminates the instrument to every student who participates in one of our virtual exchange courses. So we have collected data now from 63 different courses. The instrument is the questions are divided into groups with different cognitive load. Essentially, there's a group of questions that ask student perception on the logistics, the technology, the preparation for the experience. There's a group of questions that ask student perceptions on their growth on basic elementary intercultural competence. Then there's a group of questions instead that go a little bit deeper on perception of actual behavioral change due to the participation in the virtual exchange. And then there's a group of questions that are on sort of a summative satisfaction with the experience. What we have seen thus far is that students are very positive on their perception of growth in elementary intercultural competence. They almost all say, yes, this experience changed my perception of a different culture. Yes, this experience motivated me to consider studying abroad. And also, they're very positive on recognizing that the experience gave them new skills. And this for us is fundamental, because I think that one of the powerful aspects of virtual exchange is this exposure to skills of virtual, global, collaborative work that the students experience. And the students recognize that these are new skills that they have acquired. When we start looking instead at the deeper impact on behavioral change, the verdict there is still open. The results are not that positive. And there, I don't know yet if it's because the experiences are not long enough, or simply we have to recognize that virtual exchange can go only so far in moving students, and then we need something else. I don't know. We're curious to continue to collect data and see what we find out. Okay.
Yeah, certainly it's a nascent field, and I'm excited to see that a lot more folks are studying the impact of virtual exchange in different modes and different ways to have more impact on students. So Stephanie, I want to come back to you as you all have launched this program. Tell me a little bit about what you believe are kind of the successful components for a campus to succeed in launching virtual exchange. What are the few main things? Is it administrative? We mentioned technology. Is it student recruitment and marketing? Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for us, it's been this equal partnership that we've developed between my office, the Office of Global Learning Initiatives, which is very much focused on teaching and learning and integrative learning in the classroom and outside of the classroom, and our Department of Instructional Technology. That's been huge. We realized that we cannot do this initiative without them, and they the same. So that partnership has been massive. Another aspect is definitely professional development. But when we talk about professional development, I just want to riff on what Jean Mario was talking about earlier, and talking about impact and how we measure impact. Student learning is predicated on faculty learning, and COIL, or virtual exchange, has a significant impact on faculty. Their experience, it's not just about professional skills and thinking more deeply about what is the nature of collaboration, what do diverse perspectives bring to my classroom, but faculty are making those intimate and close relationships with their international partners, sometimes people they haven't ever had a chance to be in the same room with. Or on the flip side, these are faculty who have been researching and publishing for sometimes up to 25 years in one case at our campus. And then when they move into the space where they're actually teaching together and developing projects for their students to engage in together, there's a new sense of vulnerability and transformation that they're engaging with. So we are very interested at FIU in understanding more about the student experience. But I have to say that personally, professionally, I'm very interested in the faculty experience, because I think that has a significant impact on students, but it also lends itself to other courses that faculty teach that aren't COILed or virtual exchange courses, as well as their research and their personal lives as well.
If I can riff on the term from Stephanie, I totally agree with that. We've seen, I have one favorite anecdotal example on the impact on faculty. We have one faculty member who's taught a history of the book course for years. And then he taught it in a virtual exchange setting with a Chinese partner. And he, after that experience, said, oh my God, I taught this course for many years in such a Western-centric framework. And now I'm going to change the way I teach this course, because now I have this totally new perspective that I've acquired because I did the virtual exchange. So he grew as a professional and is now offering a tremendously amplified experience to students.
Thanks for that, John Mario. Don, I want to drill in on a question to you sort of similar. How have you all integrated this into an existing curriculum? So you've got this great virtual experience. It's high tech, it's fancy, it looks good. Great impact on the students. How are you integrating into an existing curriculum?
So we integrated into existing curriculum in every class. So every class that we're teaching, it's already an existing class. So for example, the most recent one I think is kind of fun is composition, Composition 101, one of the most popular classes to take at a community college. One of our faculty in the past had utilized a service project. People would go out and interview people in different service organizations as part of her composition class. And she's morphed that now into the intercultural interviewing, and the students from each side of, this is in France, are working together on the project, and she's worked with the French instructor to integrate it in her curriculum as well, because it's the first time for her doing it. So that growth of the faculty happens in that curriculum development, because they get to talk to somebody in a different country about the way they are building their curriculum. So each time we do the COIL or the virtual exchange, that's an integration right into the curriculum, and sometimes transforms the whole class, like Jean Mario was saying.
Good. Stephanie, John Mario, do you guys have any thoughts on integrating into the curriculum different from what Don mentioned?
I do have, oh.
Go ahead, Stephanie first. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I have an anecdote to share. So
yeah.
This has to do with graduate programs. We have 3 right now. One is from what I've been told, the world's only graduate program in transnational crime studies. We also have a landscape architecture program and a marine biology program. And those 3 programs are considering weaving COIL into their programs as a way to really bring mutual reinforcement and value to our institution beyond the dollar sign, right? So to enhance the student learning experience for all of our partners. These are international programs that some of them are taught in country abroad, and some of them are engaged students through online teaching. And they also want to really make this a distinctive value add for the program. So that's an entrepreneurial piece that I think is important.
Great. John Mario, anything else to add?
Yeah, I want to bring the collective attention to one piece of from my point of view, from the needed infrastructure related to the location of virtual exchange in the curriculum. I think it's important that when you look at an institutional approach to this, you need to have at the table some pieces of the curricular approval process of the institution, meaning you don't want to have faculty in a rogue fashion start implementing virtual exchange, even if supported by the central administration, and then create issues with their department chairs or their deans who wake up at a certain point and say, what are you doing? Why are you doing? What is this thing? Who approved? Who gave you the green light to do this? And the way in which we do this is with a committee, the Comprehensive Internationalization Committee, that has representation from all the colleges and schools selected by our shared governance body, our faculty council, and they look at the proposals that come through from faculty members for projects in existing courses, and in a sense they function as a quality control mechanism on the validity of the proposed projects. As Stephanie and Don, we also do virtual exchange in existing courses, so courses that have already been approved through the regular curricular approval process of the institution, but we have this extra quality control piece, faculty-led, on the specific projects that are embedded in the courses.
That's great. I appreciate that. So I want to ask one quick last question to some of you all before we go into audience Q&A. I know, Don, you all your program was supported through a grant that the Stevens Initiative gave to IREX. Jean Mario and Stephanie, the question is really for you all. Jean Mario, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about different funding mechanisms on your campus that have helped you to start this up, because not every institution will get a grant, how have you all provided the financial support? Is it through course revenue? Is it through philanthropy? Is it through a provostial grant of some sorts? John Mario, real quick.
Right. So when we started, we decided that we wanted to have a structured mini grant program to allow the faculty member to travel to the partners to work out the details of the courses. At the beginning, I carved out the money from other pieces of my budget, of the global engagement budget. And then once the program had already been launched and we had evidence of success, then I asked for more money to the provost. And the lucky circumstance was, as I mentioned at the beginning, that internationalization of the curriculum was a priority of the strategic plan. So I ended up having some funds dedicated to that. The funds that were initially allocated are now way below what we need given the growth of the program. So I will soon have to go and knock on the door and see if I can get a little more money.
Great. Stephanie, what about you?
Sure, we knew from the very beginning that we were going to have to make a choice because we were not going to be able to offer faculty grants or stipends to do course development or travel and be able to provide the infrastructure that they needed to be able to do the work. So we made a choice to invest what little funds that we have in the infrastructure piece and to kind of be entrepreneurial in terms of folks that do need to do some travel and do need some support. So we have a technology fee. This is a student fee. So we use that for some consulting and some to purchase a site license for VoiceThread so that we could invite our international partners in. And that's something that serves all of our students. We also have two Title VI we have a National Resource Center in Latin American and Caribbean Studies, and we have a cyber grant. And those projects both wrote course development and travel funds into their grants. And then we also had that funding from the State Department. And we're looking for other grants, but you do have to many of us are going to have to make that choice. And we feel that we made the right choice because we have faculty that we knew would be naturally interested in the pedagogy. And that's another reason why our professional development is more self-paced. Good. Because we can't give the stipends. So
great. And I want to add that it seems like a lot of institutions are beginning to draw from course revenue to support their virtual exchange, which is really exciting as we think about sustainability and growth and this practice spreading into other courses. So for those of you online who are watching in, you can submit your questions through the chat box that's on your screen. Our team here will be screening those and passing them forward. So Dawn, actually, we've got the first question for you. Is what foreseen or unforeseen impacts have you seen come out of virtual exchange collaborations?
Okay, so what foreseen or unforeseen? Is that what you said?
Yeah, probably more unforeseen because the foreseen ones you should know.
Yeah, right. Let me think about that. So unforeseen outcomes. We've also done some of the things we talked about with assessment with our students, and we've done it kind of differently here and there. We don't have a coordinated effort for just virtual exchange assessment at this point. We do for study abroad, so we've used some of that, and then I've allowed faculty to kind of think creatively in terms of assessing the outcomes at this point. And we have a group that's working on getting to the next level. But I think some of the unforeseen is when you find out, like in one of the classes where we have the students, some of them travel and some of them do not. And then you look at the outcomes between the two in terms of what they gain from the experience. And you can see that in many cases, the students who actually didn't have the opportunity to travel grew even more deeply than those students who did travel. And I think that has something to do with our population at a community college, the diversity and the access to intercultural experiences in general. And when you give students that opportunity to have that intercultural experience, they can really soar. And they may not think they're going to have the opportunity, but that learning in several of the classes this particular faculty has measured the growth was even higher on many of the measures than the students who actually traveled.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Dawn, about that. So are you saying that you are comparing students who did virtual exchange and did not travel with students who did not do virtual exchange and did travel?
No, the students who were in the same class that involved a virtual exchange About 1/4 of them traveled, and the 3/4 did not travel. So the exact same class.
That's super interesting.
That's awesome.
It is.
That's great. Next question for you, Jean Mario. Tell us a little bit about what recent publications that you could recommend to capture learning from virtual exchange courses. Obviously, there's a lot of resources at the SUNY COIL Center. Jean Mario, you can also, I'm sure, expand on that. We have some resources on the Stevens Initiative website under the Resources tab. Jean Mario, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Actually, I think there's a little bit of a desert out there on real data-driven assessment of impact of virtual exchange on students, to be honest. So I'm a little bit of at a loss. Yes, something you can find on SUNY, something you can find with you guys, but I don't have a definite. I mean, there are books, particularly on the language acquisition side of virtual exchange, the Teletandem experience. That's probably the most researched aspect. So if you Google telecollaboration or Teletandem, that's the area in which you find more publications. But on what we are talking about today on virtual exchanges, not necessarily for language acquisition, I honestly cannot pinpoint yet good data-driven research on impact. There's a communal effort, and SUNY is spearheading this in trying to move forward the research agenda in this direction, and we are all part of it. So we hope that soon we will have more data.
Oh, yeah.
Stephanie, you had a comment you want to chime in?
I was going to say, if there's anybody on this webinar who's got a graduate student who's looking for a thesis, the world is wide open, and I'm sure there are many institutions that would love to collaborate with graduate students. In terms of doing educational research within your own institution, it's a lot easier because there's an IRB process, that exemption probably, since it's educational research, but it's a huge opportunity.
There is, and we're seeing a lot more graduate students, PhD students who are beginning to write on virtual exchange. At the recent AIEA conference in San Francisco, we met a number of different folks who are studying it and doing research. So we're excited to see what their findings look like. We will be publishing an annual report later in the year about some of the things that we found here. So let's go to the next question. Are any of you seeing a move towards partnering with instructional designers to develop their competence in designing virtual exchange courses? That's a great question.
That is a great question.
Who's got some thoughts on that?
That's a fantastic question.
Who's got the fantastic answer? Jean Mario, what about you?
I mean, we have relied on instructional designers from the very beginning, because our model is faculty member takes the professional development workshop and that gets paired with one of our instructional designers that serves as a coach and therapist throughout the experience. And what I've seen in our team of instructional designer is that there's interest and hunger to become competent in this area, and it's a fascinating thing to see. Anecdote: the first main facilitator of our professional development workshop, who acquired skills in intercultural competence that she didn't have when she started because she was more techie, and then acquired these skills. A few months after we created the professional development she facilitated for two editions, she was snatched away from us by an international global hospitality chain, exactly because of her acquisition of these kind of skills.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's something going on there. There's a movement in the instructional designer world getting into this space. It's fascinating to watch.
I'll note real quick, and then Stephanie, I'll jump to you. One of our partner NGOs, actually the Global Nomads Group, recently went through a pretty major redesign of their program, and a lot of it was student-centered, and they incorporated the student perspectives and the sort of student desires into the way they structured their virtual exchange program. So anybody on the line, I would encourage you to also check out the Global Nomads website and reach out to their leadership for more info. Stephanie, you had a thought on this?
Well, just that it also ties into so much about best practices in COIL and virtual exchange, right? Because we have the same situation at FIU. It's fascinating. We have an instructional designer who also happens to be a professor online of international intercultural instruction, and communication. And so she is the program manager for this initiative. Media Technology Services was the name of our instructional technology unit. They're going to rename themselves to put the focus on instruction. This is about equal power, and it's about putting the learning experience or the task before the technology. So many people are really worried about getting involved with virtual exchange or COIL because they think, well, I'm not very tech savvy. It's about thinking about what are our students going to do and learn together. And then later on, we think about what is the best tool to help them do that. And that can be Facebook, WhatsApp. It can be just texting, Google Docs, things that are free and easy to use. So I'm glad that you brought up, whoever asked this question, it's a great question.
Yeah. So Stephanie, I want to come back to you for another question that came up. Could you give some specific examples of what virtual exchange looks like in your classroom? And I think this person really wants to know specifically, what does it look like? What specific projects are the students working on together? Let's just, in the interest of time, give us your quick lightning round answer.
A couple of great ones. So one is a faculty member in women and gender studies. She teaches a course fully online on gender violence in the law. She is collaborating with a professor in Brazil who teaches video game design. And the students together are collaborating on an advocacy campaign around gender violence within video game storylines, but then also in the culture surrounding video gaming. And the next project that they're going to do is having the students work together to create a gender neutral or a heroine's journey video game. We also have a faculty member in Italian. She has students collaborating with students at the International University in Perugia, and all of the students are learning Italian. But in Perugia, it's the center of chocolate. They have the International Chocolate Festival. Here in Miami, we have one of the only artisanal chocolatiers in the country, as well as growing cacao in South Florida. So they're going on field trips. They're studying together about the chocolatier or chocolate making industry in their places. And then together they developed a promotional campaign for the 25th anniversary of the International Chocolate Festival.
Great.
Can I put a quick shameless plug? This person interested in examples can Google DePaul Global Learning Experience. It will land on one of our pages where we have a showcase of all the projects that we've done, and they can get concrete examples of what some of the courses look like.
So cool. I'm going to make a deal with all of our speakers on the webinar and everybody who's listening in today, because I know there's some really amazing virtual exchange examples out there. Here's a challenge for everyone. Use the hashtag #WorldClassConnection and tweet at the Stevens Initiative with your stories, and we will amplify them to hopefully create a community of learning and a community of practice around some of these really interesting and exciting virtual exchange models. And I will also say, for those of you who have really, really, really good programs, reach out to us and maybe we'll put you on a blog. How about that? So I know there's some really great models out there. So definitely reach out. John Mario, I want to come back to you with a quick question, then we're going to go to some closing questions for everyone. For any of you all, have you had experience in dealing with other partner institutions that don't have the resources perhaps that your institution has had, and how have you managed that? That's a really great and important question as we think about access, not just within our communities, but globally. John Mario, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So we give to our faculty the freedom to choose whether they want to use their mini grant to travel themselves or to have the partner faculty come to Chicago. And many of our faculty choose to have the partner faculty come to Chicago. So that's one way in which we try to support the partner school in the case in which resources are not available. We've also, I must say, have worked with at least a couple of institutions who have put resources on their end. So that's one way. It's a delicate game. It's a matter of respect and equity in working with the partner institution. So it's a case by case. So.
Right. Dawn, do you have any thoughts to chime in on that?
Yeah, I think, sometimes the resources that our partner institutions don't have is the training part of it, the faculty training part of it, and having their own mentors on their campuses to help their faculty. And so we really spend a lot of time in that situation with the two faculty spending just time getting to know each other and trust each other at the beginning so that they can develop that relationship of mentorship as well as partnership, which sometimes can work and sometimes can be very challenging.
Right.
Actually, Dawn reminded me that another thing we do for the partner institution is we embed the partner faculty into our professional development workshop, if when they would like to, it works.
Great.
And even that is delicate because you don't want to say, oh, we have the professional development workshop, you have to take our training. It's a delicate, culturally respectful negotiation.
Of course. So I'm going to ask you guys each a closing question. Our time is quickly coming to an end, but perhaps we can explore this topic again in sort of part 2 of campus internationalization. I think there's a lot of interest and a lot of questions actually from the field. But just to sort of close off, I want to ask you guys, Stephanie, if you could go back to day 1 of your virtual exchange planning, what would you do differently and what would you do the same? Real quick.
The same is that we would be open to just the same kinds of things that Jean-Mario and Dawn are talking about, which is our faculty's desire and motivations and just what's possible. What we would do different is focus a little bit more heavily from the very beginning on these institutional partnerships, because that's really where you can sustain a broad number of people in your institution doing the work and then take that partnership to the next level. Not think so much about one-offs, faculty here and there, but thinking about with whom can we partner as institutions.
Great. Dawn, next question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in internationalizing their campus through virtual exchange? What guidance would you give them?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think that sharing the stories that we talked about are important, and getting that kind of baseline buy-in from several faculty and not just going about it on your own. I think the reason that it's been successful here is because I mentioned that kind of grassroots upsurge and interest from faculty themselves in doing the project. So I think that flexibility that Stephanie was just talking about is also important. And then sharing stories from other institutions. I think the resource that Jean-Mario just said about the DePaul Global Learning Experiences, there's lots of other ones out there, helps to frame what it is you want to do and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. And for our audience members, I know we had a lot of questions that came in that we weren't able to get to. We will try to compile those as we have in past webinars and perhaps get some answers for you, put them on our blog for future reference. So for our audience members, definitely continue to check out our website. Jean-Mario, final question for you is, what do you hope virtual exchange will look like on your campus in a few years? What is your vision for it?
Oh, that's a very good question. My dream would be to move from where we are right now, which is we offer many courses, but it's a sprinkle of courses diffused, to maintain that, but also have one place in the curriculum where in a systematic fashion we could implement virtual exchange so that every student at DePaul gets exposed to it at least once in their career.
That's great. That's great. Well, folks, I really appreciate you being generous with your time. We've come to the end of our hour. I want to thank all of you for really being a part of this great webinar and really shedding light on such an important topic. I want to thank all of our audience members who've chimed in from Chile, from Peru, from across the United States. We've even got some from Morocco, from Vietnam, and across the Middle East and North Africa. So this has truly been an international webinar. We hope to continue to do more of these in the future. You'll be getting a survey from our team shortly. Please give us your feedback, any other thoughts you have on future topics. We definitely want to continue to support the growth of the field. Stephanie, Jean-Mario, and Dawn, thank you again so much, and we hope to see you guys soon. Keep in touch on Twitter and et cetera.